Hey guys, check this out. I have 3 Singer 1911A1's to show you today. Check it out. That's right, we have 3 Singers in one place. I can only do 2 at a time. Normally I try to hold them with my fingers, but I definitely don't want to bang these together. We will be talking about the price of the Singer, but I'm going to be doing an overview of the Singer, and then I'm going to show a little bit of the previous video that I did. Believe it or not, it's been almost 3 years ago that I did a video. It's up on my screen. We did a video on Singer, and actually that involved this gun and this gun. So these two were on a previous video, along with what I called a half a Singer, because it was a Singer slide on a Colt frame. But this time we topped it, and I said at the end of the video, you're never again going to see 2.5 Singers together in one spot. And in fact, we don't. We have 3 Singers together in one spot. So what I want to do is give you an overview of the Singer, give some history, and then for those of you who are interested, I'm going to go into some of the details on the production differences between the Singer and a Colt or a Remington. I'm going to talk about the differences. Now, I know for most of you, 99.999% of you will never own a Singer or even contemplate buying a Singer. The prices recently have really gone up. They range in the area of $100,000 all the way up to the record price of $400,000 for a Singer. I'm not the one saying what they're worth. We are selling one now on our website on consignment, and these 2 are owned by another collector. So these are not my guns. The consignment gun, we're just acting as the middleman. But I don't know these guns, and I'm not defending the prices. I just know that people pay a lot of money for fine art. I might look at that art and say, you paid what? And some of you write to me, not really angry, but like scolding me, like, how can you charge that much? I'm not setting the prices. The prices have been $100,000 to $400,000. We have one on our site right now. It's not our gun, but we do enjoy having these wonderful pieces of art and pieces of history. And I would just want to go over it. As long as I have 3 in the building, I might as well do a video. Let's take a look at some of the history. Singer sewing machine, before the war started, 1939, got a contract to make 500 Singer 1911 Colts. Now, why Singer? Good question. I'm not sure why, but the Ordnance Department came to Singer and said, how quickly could you tool up from your sewing machine equipment into making 1911 Colts? And so it was an experiment. I assume they gave them money from the government to do a test. How long would it take for you to tool up and make 500 guns? Why would they do that in 1939? By the way, every Singer, there's only 500 made. Every Singer was made before the war even started. A little conjecture would tell me that the government knew that we were going to go to war, and when we did, everybody was going to have to revamp consumer-based product to military-based product. Why Singer? As I read the history of the Singer sewing machine company, they made the world's best sewing machines and did it very well. They had factories in Europe. In fact, they had a factory in Scotland and they had a factory in Germany. So in 1939, as you know, the war started in Europe, but not in the United States. So my thought is, first of all, Germany was already using, they basically took over the factory and were making war equipment for the Nazis. And in Scotland, England was already at war with Germany. So Europe was at war, and the United States was not pulled into it yet, but they knew they were going to have to make equipment that would help defend freedom. And eventually the United States, of course, got into the war. So before Pearl Harbor, 500 Singers were made. Why? As a test to see how quickly we could ramp up and put out 500 of these. Why did they stop making them? The truth is they were so well made. Singer had much more precision equipment than the other gun makers, and it was so precision, such good quality that they ended up saying, never mind about the 1911s, they had other companies make them. I'll go over that in a minute. But they decided to have them make bomb sight equipment, artillery sights, and also aviation equipment that went to Europe and the United States. So let's talk about production. During World War II, the largest producers of the 1911 A1 was actually Remington Rand. Remington Rand, you may know, was a typewriter company. So you have a typewriter company making 1911 A1's. Colt, actually overall, Colt made more 1911s than anybody, but during World War II, They made about a half a million, whereas Remington Rand made about 900,000. And then Ithaca made about 400,000. And then U.S. Switch and Signal, many of you know, that's also a very expensive gun. U.S. Switch and Signal made about 50,000. And Singer, the sewing machine company, made about 500. So in that previous video, these two guns actually were featured, and we kind of showed you how beautiful they were. I still have these two guns, or at least the local dealer has them. And by the way, on this one, this was put together from parts. At the end of production, there were, I'm sure, parts left over, and so some of the workmen, with permission or without permission, were able to take home some guns and put them together. This has no serial number, so I'm convinced that this was put together from parts. Some of them are blued. As far as I can tell, they're all correct Singer parts. Some have never been finished and some are blued. It's a beautiful gun. Again, made in Elizabeth, New Jersey. That's there, but there are no proof marks. There's no P here, no P here, no inspector stamp. You can see on this one, it does have the JKC. That's one of the differences that you'll see in Singer, and that's John Clements. You see the P proof. Let's compare this to the production differences of, let's say, a Colt from the same period of time. Okay, I picked this Colt on purpose because this Colt, you see the RS, Robert Sears, that's the inspector stamp. This one was made in early 41, which is when this Singer was made. And actually the one that we just got in on consignment is a little bit nicer. So let me pull that one off the floor. Here you go. There's a better example of a Singer. So you see, I already mentioned one difference if you're buying a Singer. First of all, you have to have the Singer slide, and that's distinctly different than the Colt slide or the Ithaca or the Remington. I think most of you already know that. That's the, of course. But we had a Singer slide that was on a Colt frame, and it was also Parkerized. The original Singers had this beautiful blue, and so that's the first thing you want to look for when you're looking at a Singer. If you have the opportunity to see it in person, it should be this beautiful blue as opposed to Parkerized. There's a typical Parkerized finish. You can see the difference. Also, you see the different inspector. This is a Remington Rand, Parkerized finish. So Parkerized compared to high polished blue, nobody would make a mistake on the finish. We have a list of about 63 known Singers, and of that list, there's about 10 of them that are marked fake. But when I analyze the word fake, it's not really fake if somebody took a Singer, it was reworked after the war, they put a different barrel on it and they Parkerized it. It's still a Singer, but it's been reworked. So when we say there's 63 and 10 of them are fake, that's a little bit of an overstatement. Some of them are just flat out faked, and we'll talk about that later. But if it's been Parkerized, it's probably just been reworked, especially if the frame has the right inspector stamp and it's been Parkerized. But if it's a parts gun, the serial numbers won't line up. Singer is the only one that has an S prefix, and then it'll be 800,001 up to 800,500. This one falls right near the end of that range, but I wanted to go over the finish. This is clearly Parkerized versus high polished blue, but let's take a look at it compared to a 1941. Here's a 1941, 1911. Even with this, with the brushed blue finish, this blue is about as nice as it comes in World War II. And this is made in early 41. You can see the P proof is in a little bit different spot, but it's about the same. The inspector proof is obviously different, but take a look at the finish. Clearly this is a different high polish finish. And so in looking at the Singer, it better be this beautiful high polished blue and not the brushed blue. Also, the magazine is different. If you look at the bottom of the magazine, on a Singer magazine, it'll be a high polished blue versus a duller blue. And what really stands out is these large pins in the bottom, both sides. The Singer has large pins, unmistakable compared to, well, there are several makers for Colt and for Remington. I'll probably show you some other, you just see a little crimping right there. very tiny crimping. So this is a correct Singer magazine, and it came with this Singer pistol that we now have for sale on consignment. So it does have the correct magazine. Another real quick and easy thing to see is on the Singer, the P-proof on the top of the slide is upside down, and on the, this is the Colt, it's right side up. As you're aiming the gun, the P is facing you, and here it's upside down. Not all of, oh, here's a Union switch and signal. Beautiful gun, Union switch, again, only 50,000. They have some similar characteristics to the Singer, and I did read an article that some of the equipment and blueprints from Singer went to Union switch and signal, but the P on this Union switch, sometimes it's on the side, sometimes it's on top, but later in production, and this is a later production, they didn't even have the P on the slide or the frame, but they do have the inspector stamp, which you can see right here in a circle. This is a beautiful gun, but it is a dew-light finish. Also would not be something you would mistake if with the Singer. Another comparison with the Union switch and signal would be the mainspring housing. You see fine checkering on the mainspring housing for the Singer and the Union switch, as opposed to the Colt, which you can see has a much broader checkering. There's an obvious difference between the Colt mainspring housing and the Singer, but also let's take a look at an Ithaca and a Remington. This one is the Remington, and it has like a ribbed look, and again, there's no mistaking that. And there's an Ithaca, and again, you see the mainspring housing has the rib look. Also, if you look here, the high polished finish versus the dull. Just those are some of the differences. And now that I'm showing you this Ithaca, the grips. The grips have no reinforced circle. This is a reinforcing circle around the grip screw. And the Singer doesn't have that reinforcement. Also, the inside will be hollow, as opposed, here's a picture of the inside hollow grip versus one that's been reinforced. I'm just doing some broad differences. There are little subtle differences that I'm not going to share with you, because if I give you all the secrets, then the fakers will have that information as well, and that's something we don't want to encourage. But this is something that anybody would spot. You know, the inspection stamp, the direction of the P, the mainspring housing, the high polished finish. These are all things that jump out at you right away. So you can do a broad brush before you go any further. If you're thinking about buying a Singer, then obviously you need to talk to a third party who can really help you through that, somebody who has seen more than one or two of these. Because as I've said, there's some very subtle differences that I don't even want to go into for fear of giving out information. Oh, and I mentioned the magazine, how that's different. This magazine, this is from the earlier video. This is all correct Singer, correct housing, but as I look at this magazine, beautiful magazine, but it is not Singer. So that's the only thing wrong with this one. Now, if somebody out there has a Singer magazine, let me know. I'm looking for one so I can make this correct. This magazine is from the previous video versus this magazine is from the one that we just got in on consignment. And again, actually the bottoms look pretty good. You do see a difference here and here, but that's so subtle I don't know if I'd recognize it if I was at a gun show or an auction. But those pins, they stand out right away. Okay, one more production difference that I have to go over, because very common in 1911s and 1911A1's is that the barrels would be switched. And that's because they're so easy to switch. The US Army, every time they would send something back for rework or re-arsenal, they would swap the barrels. So it's very common if you do get a Singer, the magazine of course can be easily swapped. But the second thing that would be most easily swapped is the barrel. Somebody wants a better bore, they swap the barrel. The Singer will have a P, the same P that you see here and here. There will be a P on the barrel and no other marking. For the most part, the Ithaca and the Remington are also going to have the P, but they're going to have an HS for high standard. There's a picture of a barrel that could be for an Ithaca or a Remington. Or it would have a Flannery barrel, which would have the P, but then the F on the other side, and that again could be on either one of those. The Union switch and signal also has a high standard barrel, and Colt will have a barrel that is marked Colt, and here's an example of the Colt 45 Auto. The final thing I want to look at when examining a Singer, obviously, it has to be in the right serial range. So all of those other differences, again, they may not be fake. In other words, you might have a correct Singer, but the grips are not right. You might have a correct Singer and somebody swapped the barrel. And so finding the Singer parts are very hard. Again, if any of you have any Singer parts, I'd love to buy them from you. But very importantly, you want to look for the serial number and the way that it is stamped into the frame. There were leftover Singer slides and parts. We know that this gun, I already talked about, this is put together from parts. Some of them, again, are blued. They could easily be swapped into, a gun that doesn't have the right one. Oh, and by the way, I could switch this because that is a correct Singer magazine. These are correct Singer grips. They're not reinforced. The reinforcement ring is not there, and they're hollow inside. So this has the correct grips. It has the correct barrel, but there's no P-proof here. And there is no serial number here. So that obviously they had parts left over. They finished their contract. They had their 500, and now they have leftover parts in the factory. They weren't going to throw them away. So they got distributed maybe to the employees who took them home, or some of the other makers could have gotten some Singer parts. That's highly likely. So now there's these Singer parts floating around. What are you going to do if you're a counterfeiter and you have a Singer slide, but you need a Singer frame? Well, the only thing you can do is fake the serial number. So that's the final thing you want to look for. That serial number has to be roll stamped into there. Now, I don't have a fake marking on a Singer, but here's a example. I believe this is a 1938 or 1939 Colt Navy. So it's a very rare gun, very expensive gun. But if you look at the serial numbers, on the bottom one, that is correctly roll stamped, and you can see how that's very obviously originally roll stamped. But the one at the top, if you just pause it for a second and study that, you can see the little circular pattern. I covered up the serial numbers because it's not my gun and I didn't want to expose it as a fake, but it is a fake because somebody, they used an engraving machine or a pantograph machine. More recently, I have seen people use laser etching, and as the technology gets better, you just want to really make sure that you check the U.S. property, and then the U.S. Army, and then the serial number, because the only way to make a parts gun into a Singer is to redo the slide and have it be in the correct range. So those are the main things that you want to look at very carefully. Hey, great stuff, isn't it? I know some of you, if you're in bed, you're already drooled all over the pillow. Not a good thing. These guns are absolutely beautiful, whether it's a Union Switch, beautiful gun, this Colt, this early 41 Colt, this Singer, just absolutely beautiful guns. Unfortunately, unless you own one, unfortunately the prices keep going up. If you own one, you're really happy about that. But I don't really expect a big dip in these prices. Hopefully things will stabilize a little bit, but the prices have been going up. And these guns have turned out to be really good investments. Before I sign off, I just have a word of caution for all of you. Lately, we've been getting a lot of spam on our comments section. So when you comment, then somebody spams you. Sometimes it's pornographic sites. A lot of times people say that you won a contest and they use our names. So we used to do some giveaways. We're not doing it again, just because people have been able to hack in and write to you and say, congratulations, you won a giveaway. Several of you contacted us and let us know that your credit card was charged. Just know that it's a problem throughout YouTube. We're not the only ones, and it seems to be especially bad whenever we have some kind of a giveaway. And then you get contacted from a third party who says, hey, you won, give us your credit card. Just so you know, we're not going to do giveaways for a while, except to our patrons. We'll do private emails to our patrons only and do some giveaways. But until YouTube straightens out the problem, we don't want to participate in anything where you might be scammed out of some of your money. So please keep in mind, we're not running any contests. If anybody contacts you to pay us money for postage, it's not from Legacy. When in doubt, please contact us. Here is our information, info@legacycollectibles.com. Please contact us if you have any question, but those emails are not from us. Thanks for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. We're getting closer to 100,000 subscribers, and that's a great thing. Keep watching, because I've got a really good video coming up next.